Yes, time for reparations by Sounds of Blackness. This is Brother Jumoke Ifetayo. I'm your host for Reparations Now podcast. We want to thank our sponsor, Reparations United, for giving us, supporting us, and having this platform to elevate those who are doing the work in the reparations movement, as well as to tell the stories of some of those who've done the work in the past. So we're excited to be able to host this platform and this conversation on reparations. Reparations Now podcast is kind of a 2.0 or evolution from a podcast that I did a couple of years ago on reparations. And now we're coming in an audiovisual format and very excited to do that. We have a very special show today discussing the movement for reparations locally in the city of Decatur, Georgia. Two of the activists I've had the pleasure of working with for quite some time in the reparations movement in the metropolitan Atlanta area, and another elected official who's also coming on board as a supporter in this reparations movement. We're glad to have her on board as well in this conversation. So what I would like us to do at this point, is to have my dear friend, Brother Molly Davis, to come in. And what's up, brother?
What's happening, bro? How you doing, man? Reparations now.
Reparations now.
Yeah.
That's right. 2014, we launched something called Conversation Reparations. And people were like, what's that? And now we have seen that the conversation of reparations is definitely elevated from 2014 to now.
Indeed.
Yes.
We appreciate your steadfastness.
So, yes. And it's like so many stories we could probably tell, just the two of us, right? And it's what we've done together. But I'll just let you do what you would like to say about yourself as an attorney, activist, and founder of Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights, and the work that you've done, and how you came to get connected. That's what we ask everybody. Whatever you want to say about your bio and how you came to get connected into the reparations movement.
Yeah, that's man, what an honor, man. Again, brother, you have been a visionary in the reparations movement since early on when I got involved. So my history is one as through the African-centered education movement. The likes of Conrad Worrell, Baba Jake Carruthers, Dr. John Henry Clark, Anderson Thompson. They were all people who I looked up to in very much. And I just wanted to find my way in terms of contributing towards the Black liberation movement. And so it was through the African-centered education movement that I got involved shortly after my graduation from the United States Naval Academy. And so I had a chance to meet and work and learn from many of the leaders of the African-centered education movement, which led me, of course, when you start looking at our history, it led me to the history of our oppression in this country, and which obviously then turns towards reparations. So I was familiar with reparations, but not in the movement until I was in law school here at Georgia State University. And so I was able to, under the tutelage of Dr. Conrad Worrell, really begin to have a better understanding of the reparations movement, and just wanted to invite him to speak at Georgia State College of Law. And through that process, I met you, and I met Mama Queen Mother Njeri Algani, and you all became and continue to be my Atlanta reparations family, my community organizing comrades, and as an ancestor, continue to lift her up, continue to pour libations for Mama Njeri, and just staying close to her family and to her work. And so now I am a founder of Beacon Hill, co-founder of Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights, which is a human rights organization based in the city of Decatur. which is just 4 square miles, but with a great, rich history of Black folk building community, building families, and having many of those things that were built taken away from them through the assistance of government, as well as the power structures that existed during that period of time. And so I also am a civil rights lawyer at Davis Bozeman Johnson Law here in Decatur, and married to my wife, Jana, who is also a co-founder of Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights, and she serves as a on the Board of Education for the city of Decatur. So that's me. 2 sons, Kobe and Kahari, Howard University graduates. So we're just grateful to be able to continue to work and to stay engaged. So thank you, brother.
Yes, thank you. You know, I just feel like we could just keep going back and forth with the compliments, but I feel like I really didn't do you justice in introducing you, brother. I mean, you contributed so much to the Atlanta community. You're a super law firm has done a tremendous amount in the community and all the work that you do. And just thank you for, being a shining light and just a positive brother in the community, husband, father. We just appreciate you and
Appreciate
and
you.
your work in
Thank
the
you.
reparations movement. Thank you, brother. All right, so we have another guest, and she's having some technical difficulties, but we're gonna bring her on as soon as we get her on. But right now, we want to introduce Commissioner, Decatur City Commissioner Lisa Mayer, who has been leading the charge for, as we say, there's us a fight on the outside, and some of us a fight for us on the inside. So she's been doing that fight on the inside, helping to bring reparations forward. So would you tell us a little bit of your story, your bio, what you would like to share with us, and how you got connected to the reparations movement?
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I serve as a city commissioner in Decatur. This is my 5th year as a city commissioner. I was just reelected in November. The importance of the work that's being done in Decatur it is long-standing. As Mr. Davis mentioned, Decatur has a rich history of community being built by its Black residents. And so when I became a commissioner, I was mainly focused on housing and equity related to housing, affordability, equitable opportunity for housing. And I believe it was my first year as a commissioner, Mr. Davis introduced me to a fascinating and wonderful individual named Robin Rue Simmons. And Robin asked me directly, would you be interested in looking into doing some reparations work in Decatur? She, of course, is known for the introduction of a reparations ordinance in her town, where she served as a elected representative in Evanston. At the time, I told her very plainly, no, I am focused on housing. I don't think I have the bandwidth to take on reparations work. But in reality, a lot of the issues that we have with housing today are due to harm that was introduced to Black residents in Decatur. And so I could not deny that reparations and the housing issues that we have in Decatur, specifically housing equity, are inextricably linked. So now I am working to provide access to information, data, historical archives to allow those who are interested in doing research to help Decatur form some type of reparations resolution in the future. And very excited about the opportunity to be a part of this work.
That's good. That's great. The Evanston model they've been working on, replicated that around the country. And so they've come up with like different criteria to help to move it forward. And one of those criteria is having a receptive elected official who's willing to work to move it forward. And so you represent that for us in Decatur, and we appreciate that. Yes, I see I've got Mama Nobody on yet. Okay. So, and I think it's also good, one of the things that NCOBRA has done over the years is that, a lot of times the conversation of reparations was I don't know, I would say maybe extreme for people. And so one of the ways that we strategized to bring people into the reparations movement or conversation was to have them look at those harms in the community. We have what we call the 5 injury areas. So we have health as an injury area. We have wealth and poverty as an injury area. We have the criminal, some people say injustice system or criminal justice system. We have education, and then we also have peoplehood, nationhood. And so those areas and housing will come under economic development and wealth and poverty. And those areas were areas that we use to organize people around to see that they can see the linkage between that and reparations. So, and you, as you clearly saw in Decatur. So I want to ask Brother Mowley maybe just to give us a little background on Beacon Hill Alliance, some of the work that you all have done successfully, which laid the foundation for the Decatur County Commission Decatur City being so receptive to your request.
Well, I would be remiss if I did not raise up Mayor Elizabeth Wilson, who is 91 years young and still providing guidance and love for our community. She really, when you see someone love a community, they can model for you how to love better. And that's what she has been for us, for Jana and I, and for so many, right? She has been a leader and organizer, and she has such great pride around the history of the city of Decatur's Black residents and of Beacon Hill. And so we began to gather initially around the issue of equity in education. And at Mayor Wilson's house, we just were having these conversations and really, quietly, without, unbeknownst to us, she's grooming us to continue to do the work. And that's just her way. I think that's one of the beautiful things about true eldership, is that they are constantly looking for who's next, who's going to continue the work, who's going to keep moving this work forward and not allow it to be forgotten. And so Mayor Elizabeth Wilson, we started a gathering of folk called the Spirit of Beacon Hill, which evolved into us attempting to become a branch of the NAACP. That did not work out after a couple of years of work, but we knew the work still existed, and it didn't matter what name the work would be done under. It just needed to get done. And so we focused on equity in education, which resulted in us being able to, as Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights, we were able to help get a equity director hired for the city schools. We addressed issues of equity as it relates to test scores, discipline, disproportionality. So education was our first real victories and fight. And that was our, the first grounds. But of course, like every Black community in America, it's our oppression and what we experience is complex. And so we had housing issues, which Lisa has taken up, Commissioner Meyer has taken up, as well as Phil Cuffey and others have made that a primary area of focus. We've also addressed public safety issues. And so we had a Confederate monument. And so Paul McClellan and Fanta High. Fanta is now our female co-chair for Beacon Hill, and our setup is very much modeled after NCOBRA to try to ensure that we have gender balance so that everyone's voice is heard. And so Fanta and one of our allies, Paul McClellan, kept pushing around the removal of the Confederate monument. And that eventually came down in 2020 after the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, all of that energy around that. So the Confederate monument coming down is definitely a result of that 2020 energy, but it was also the organizing work of Fanta and Paul and others who just wouldn't let it go. And so now we have a reparations, some funding for reparations work, and I'll let Commissioner Meyer talk about that a bit. But so we've had some victories, but we also have a lot of work to do. But it's important. In our work with December 12th movement out of New York, they would always quote Amilcar Cabral: "Tell no lies, claim no easy victory." So we got work to do, but we are going to speak on what we have receipts for in terms of organizing victories, but we still have a lot to do for our young people and organizing in terms of wealth and equity here in the city of Decatur.
Yes. Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights has definitely made an impact in the city of Decatur. And at this time, though, we have, I believe, Mama Nabantu. Can we bring her up? Yay. How you doing, Dr. Mama Nabantu?
Fine. Greetings, everybody.
Greetings.
To be here.
So the way we begin this is we ask you to tell a little bit about yourself and tell about your connection to how you got connected to the reparations movement. And before you go, I'll just say we know Dr. Mama Nabantu as a fearless warrior in our community, elder who's worked with many different fronts in terms of African-centered schools, in terms of Pan-African Federalist movement, reparations, self-determination. And so she is, to me, a role model, really, of what a warrior woman, queen mother looks like in our community, how they show up in the community. Matter of fact, your name means, was it Mother of?
Mother of Humanity,
Mother of Humanity.
The batters matter. Sleepless until the matters. What am I trying to say? Sleepless until the battle is won.
Sleepless until the battle is won. All right, so I'll let you continue with your own introduction.
Okay, Mama Dr. Nabantu, mother of 5 adult children, 8 grandchildren, and probably 300 or more that I have taught over the years since 1971. I've been teaching through the years, 10 years in the public setting, and then the rest of those years up until I got here in Atlanta, 2006, with a private, independent, community-based school. So I moved here, as I just said, in 2006, here in the city of Decatur. And I wasn't that much involved with the city of Decatur. I was more out in the West End. And if it wasn't for Brother Attorney Mawuli Davis and his wife, I probably would not have gotten involved as I am today. I remember when particularly his wife was working with the students when she was working in the high school, and one of my grandchildren was there, and they were doing these Black History programs. I thought was profound, and I was really inspired by that and about their involvement in the community. So that's really how I got involved with the city of Decatur. Although my background has always been an activist, and involved in throughout the metro, actually, and throughout different parts of California when I was there. Always been involved working with Republic of New Africa or in Cobra. Now we're with the Pan African Federalist Movement. And I'm honored to be a co-chair with Brother Attorney Mawuli Davis with the Reparations Committee as a part of the Black Alliance for Humanity. I know I'm not saying it correctly. I always mess it up. But yes, I'm glad to be here. I Also brought to this community the Collard Green Cultural Festival, which is not just about collard greens, but is also about getting our people aware through our booklets that we put out, our souvenir booklets, which always has an article in it about reparations since 2010. So it's good work, and it's hard work, and it's not easy.
Yes, thank you, Mama. And so Miley's already gave a little background on Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights and the work. And so we're going to turn to Commissioner Meyer to just share. I was surprised to find out that there was, before the request for the money from the city, that you all already had it in your strategic plan to move on the issue of reparations. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about like how that came about and to lay the foundation for where we even are now with the support of Beacon Hill for.
That's right. So City of Decatur, like most cities, has a strategic plan that spans 10 years. And within this last iteration of the strategic plan, there is a section of that plan that's devoted to social justice related issues, and reparations is one of the focuses within the strategic plan. The goal of the strategic plan is to outline where the city is going to go for the next 10 years, but not everything that's documented in the strategic plan is going to get done. It requires a lot of input from the community. It requires a lot of pressure sometimes to bring issues to the forefront that will take, the time of the city staff and the funds that are available within the city. And so it was very important to me that we did not just ceremonially list reparations in our strategic plan for a conversation piece or to, get credit for being thought leaders. It was important that this was actionable and immediate. So without being able to have an organization like Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights, I don't know how quickly we would have been able to start doing work related to reparations, or quite frankly, if any of it was going to be done at all. There was no guarantee. But with it being in the strategic plan, that demonstrates support from the city, and it allows us the leeway to go ahead and introduce the community-based work that is required for introducing reparations.
Yeah, so I was just curious, did you have something to do with that, or how did it actually get into the strategic plan?
I will take no credit for that. So can I just say that I have had the honor of having Mama Nabantu as my neighbor. So when you have such a distinguished activist with a long history of serving communities, that rubs off on you. You're inspired by that. And so between having Mama Nabantu literally on my street, and then the voice of the Beacon Hill Black Alliance and their leadership helping me to understand the prioritization of the work that needs to be done. So there's plenty of work that needs to be done around social justice and equity in the city of Decatur, but by prioritizing what we needed to do when, that was really helpful in establishing which goals were going to be set and how much pressure needed to be put on each issue. I use the word pressure really specifically because I think that it's really easy to talk without action in a government setting, because intentions usually get you credit. We don't want to intend to do reparations work in City of Decatur. We want actionable results when it comes to reparations. And so that requires visibility, that requires, taking a strong stance, and that requires, pushing to make sure that we end up getting results. And so that's my role. That's my role in this. Those that have been doing the work, like Mama Nabantu, like Mr. Davis, like yourself, You are the ones that provide the guidance and insight for people like me who are learning, but who are able to be the voice from the inside to help move things forward.
Thank you for that. Yeah, I know sometimes people say sound bites, think of sound bites as a negative thing, but sometimes sound bites can be really positive. But I think there was a good sound bite in there somewhere where you were saying something about Decatur doesn't want to just do intentions around reparations; they want to do action around reparations. I think we might pull that out. Yeah, that was good. All right, so I don't know who wants to talk about this, Mama Nabantu or Maoli, just to give us the background in terms of some of the work. I know Maoli laid out a little bit, but some of the, and you did too, Commissioner, around some of the work that the Beacon Hill was doing leading up to the request for the $25,000 and to how that's being used to amplify the work that you have already been doing.
Maybe not Mama Nabantu can talk a little bit about going into the city archives, because she was there, and I think that's important work. And you get a little emotional when you think about what our people have gone through, and you begin to discover those things and for yourself, right? We talk at times, I think the beauty of Beacon Hill and being in a community is that it centers your work in terms of like your neighbors, like what Commissioner Meyer was referencing, Mama Nabantu, like this is community work. And I always wanted to be involved in organizing geographically because, politically as a nationalist and as a Pan-Africanist, we, the whole world, we organizing around the whole world and it's big theories, but this is like nuts and bolts, and it has a different way of hitting because you're not just talking, and you hear your voice come back to you in different ways, whether that is being criticized or being affirmed by other neighbors. So I did want to just frame it that way of how important and visionary the work of this local organizing effort is. And I know there are forces that try to undermine that work, but it is the work that empowers, that informs, and that inspires, that people can feel directly connected to. And I think it is incredibly valuable as we work for a national solution that we work locally as well. But Mama Nabantu, talk about, I just think you should talk about it because as a teacher, I just saw you lighting up seeing those young people in there and, doing what you do.
Of course, Brother Mavuli is just right across the railroad track from me. I think we're about 5 minutes from each other as well. So geographically, all three of us are very close to each other, and I think about that. In case of disasters and anything like that, I'll know I got two neighbors that I can count on. And we, at some point, we probably should work on that at
Indeed.
another point because we were so close. Yes. Working with the reparations locally, I always felt would help people understand nationally why we working for reparations, and for folks to see right in their own backyard what has happened to this community. And getting into the archives was really, it was it was an honor to be able to touch the pages of archives of where these decisions were made against our people, particularly Beacon Hill, and what they did to move our people out of the way by way of urban renewal. And I think it was maybe 8 or 10 years after urban renewal was legislated in this government that the city of Decatur got onto it and decided that Beacon Hill was a sore spot and that it was spread throughout the community and throughout the city, and we don't want that to happen. Even though it was a thriving community, we had businesses and we had churches and we had schools. We had a lot going for ourselves. It was working, I think, very well. And they didn't like that. So they used urban renewal to make Beacon Hill a sore spot. And that's what I was learning as I was going through the archives and how decisions were made at the city council level to destroy that entire community. So it was, I like going back in history, and I like seeing uh, and learning about the historical significance of an area where I actually live in. And I think that when you're teaching as an educator, children should be centered where they live and find out the history of where they are, and that leads to the the students from Georgia State that are now working with us, who are going to also go and do more research in the archives very soon. I think they just recently went. I wasn't able to go this time, and I guess Lisa might talk about that later. And that's so important, is to have the students to be involved in that archive and getting the research ready for us to deal with the visionary that Mawuli's talking about. Actually seeing photos and newspaper clippings and verbiage of what happened and why it happened and why people were convinced that they should leave their homes and go to these beautiful apartment buildings that we call something else. um, and that they wouldn't have to pay for gas, electricity, and gas, and they would just have to just live there, and whatever they pay for, they'll get all that they need there. To leave their homes, and leave their businesses, was a destruction of a community. And so my involvement is because I want people to understand locally what reparation is about, so that when we talk about the national part and also the global part, that they may have a better understanding about what reparations is about. Because it hits home when you're sitting at home and you say, oh, just down the street there used to be Beacon Hill, and now it's what, a government building there. That's not right. We want people to understand that's not right, and we need to be compensated for these injuries. So I don't know if that's enough that we can go on with, but that's where I am, and I appreciate Brother Mahu uh, for taking that lead, and also Fanta and Phil, because they're doing a lot of great. And with the Pan African festivals getting ready to come up, whoever thought that we would have a Pan African festival in the city of Decatur? That was shocking. I said, it's not going to happen. And it happened. And it's happening. It's
It's
coming up.
happening.
Yes. So I feel privileged to now feel myself involved in a community that I didn't see myself being involved in until this whole issue came up, and the work that um, my Willie's wife was doing in the high school. I was glad that she became on the board, but I was sad that she was not the teacher there anymore, because it's such work that those students learn from those Black History programs and the other work she was doing. So I yield.
Oh, I thought you were yielding your question to let Mama Devonta go first, but you were still going to speak on it, brother.
Oh man,
Attorney Mike.
no, Mama, look, Mama Devonta, she covered it, and it, I'm reading a book by Robin Kelly about the Black radical imagination, and interestingly, there's a point that he makes in that book around how our imagination and our vision really is manifested out of our work, right? So it's through the work that things become more solidified and clearer. Like, oh, okay, I can't go that way. I've got to go this way. Or, oh, we can't do this without an elected official. And the elected official saying, oh, I need help from these outside forces to move things. And so it's in real time that the work is being done. And I think it again just helps us clarify that we got to do the work, because for so long I would feel like our work, and it was important work, I mean, people don't remember. It's interesting, Jumoke. Yesterday, I was at a Florida A&M University gala for their alumni, and because Jana's she's about to be a distinguished alumnus, and so we at this event, and there's a lawyer who I invited when I was in law school to speak at the law school, and he came up to me and he said, "You were right about reparations, brother." I mean, he's in a big firm, and he knew that when we were doing the Black Law Students Association in collaboration with Cobra, we were talking about reparations, and he said it 23, 24 years ago. And so the Cobra work was groundbreaking, establishing, and it gave us space to keep banging, right? And it continues to. But I say that to say that for me, Atlanta was too big, right? We were in the Atlanta chapter, and I didn't like, where were we? Now, I remember going to City Hall with Ma Manjiri and MZ Tate and Baba Alvin Dollar, and getting C.T. Martin to have that sign off on supporting reparations. And the same thing that, we're seeking to do in the city of Decatur. And it was like, that was a moment. And then we're like, all right, what's next? And my Manjuri would always talk about, we got to get the commission set up. They have one set up for our brothers and sisters of the Jewish community who died as a result of the Holocaust. Where is our commission?
That's right. That's right.
She pushed that. So here we are. We're moving in that direction, and that's what's happening in Decatur, and it's happening all over the country, which is a beautiful thing. And I love what Cam is doing, what you're doing, what Robin Ruth Simmons is doing in terms of just trying to pull us together so we can learn from each other locally.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned that. I had forgot about that in terms of Mama and Jerry talking about that, because we were really talking about it at the state level. And then, the state also, there's a reparations commission bill now being proposed at the state level, at the state of Georgia.
Yep.
And so, yeah, that's interesting. So that has come full circle. It's interesting. I was thinking about how often I use the analogy with people that what Cobra did was sort of like being a farmer. Like we had to till the soil, break up the soil. We had to put fertilizer in the soil, plant the seeds, pull the weeds, put water in the soil. And now we're seeing the harvest. Now we're seeing the produce coming from the work that we've done from that work. Yeah. So let's see. I just want to we got to go on record and just talk about this $25,000. Who wants to talk about that? Like,
I want Commissioner Meyer to break it down, because you really have to have a courageous elected official in this work.
Sure.
Like, and the whole Black elected official has at times been extremely disappointing for our folk, man, because we've been betrayed so many times. And I'm talking about across this country, where we thought an election would result in more tangible victories for the masses of our people, and it didn't, so to see this
sometimes got worse.
Indeed. Like stuff that couldn't have gotten passed, under a white-led administration, or So to see the sister, and I remember the conversation that she mentioned. She's like, I don't have the capacity. I don't see myself doing it, and it's but to remain open and to hear the voices of community, and so often I think. This is my political analysis, is that our Black elected officials at times will lose their hearing from our people, right? They'll continue to hear other folk, but they'll take us for granted. And Commissioner Meyer didn't do that. So I'll be quiet. I just wanted to acknowledge that in this moment because it's important, because we talk so badly about folk that don't get it right, but when folks do get it right, we gotta lift them up as well.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much because it's hard. You know, it is really hard when you are trying to do the right thing and you are, you know, labeled the squeaky wheel or told that you're too aggressive or, you know, perhaps you should, you know, compromise more. You know, those microaggressions get thrown out all the time, but that can't be a distraction from the work. The work still has to get done. And for me, it's always important to think about what we can do as opposed to what we can't do. And that's where the $25,000 came from. I recognize that it is going to take a lot more than $25,000 to be able to fund the necessary work to get to an end result that we are happy with. But I knew that $25,000 was a sweet spot that would likely get approved quickly and allow for some really critical work to get started so that we could go back and ask for more after demonstrating the progress that can be made with such a short amount of time and a small amount of money. I felt that it was really important that that request come from me as opposed to it coming directly from the Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights, because I didn't want that request to get lost. I'm sure that it would have been taken seriously, but taken seriously within a month, a year, 2 years. You know, it was really important that that was a request that came directly from me to the city leadership, our city manager, so that if I got any pushback as a person who knows the rules, as a person who knows all the processes, I could debate those. Fortunately, I didn't have to. Our city manager was very supportive of this. Again, it's in the strategic plan of the city, so there's no argument that this is something that the city needs to be focused on. The only questions were, do we have the bandwidth for staff that would support the effort? And, you know, do we have the funds available? I knew that we had $25,000 available. I know exactly. This is why it's so important to be involved in your city's budgetary process. I know how much is set aside, and I make the request each year for how much should be set aside for work like this. So I knew that $25,000 was available. And so when making that ask, I knew exactly how much we had available, how much we could get approved through, you know, administrative means. This still came before the city commission for a vote. But it wasn't a formal vote. It was more of a request or a petition, as opposed to something that would have been, you know, a larger grant of funds would have required a vote from the city commission. So I think that, you know, $25,000 is a great start. It is absolutely not nearly enough to get the work done that is needed to come forward with you know, a resolution or to form a task force or to compensate the people who are doing this important work. Because let's be very clear, there is no expectation that people doing this work that will end up being an output for the city should not be compensated. People should be compensated for the work that they're doing. And, you know, that is an expectation and something that is absolutely not negotiable.
I want to thank you, Lisa, for sticking in there, because I know you was thinking about dropping out of the commission. I was like, oh, please don't do that. You know, and our former mayor, I guess, really got your attention. You said, well, maybe I need to stick on, because I know in your personal private life is not easy as well.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you for sticking in there and being there for us, because, you know, we may not have gotten that little bit of funds. It had not been for you. So I just wanted to say thank you at this time.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm gonna put it back on you as we begin to close, Commissioner, and just share with us. This will be the question for everybody: what are the next steps? What would you like to see? How would you like to see the community get involved more with the work that's going on with Beacon Hill Black Alliance for Human Rights? And so we'll start with you, Commissioner, in terms of what are the next steps, and we'll go and ask everybody the same question.
I am very excited about the research. Decatur is a 200-year-old city. And so there are documents that are in books that are, from the early to mid 1800s, documentation of ordinances and laws that have been passed all the way up into, the early 2020s that are ordinances that either intentionally or inadvertently have caused harm. Bringing in young people is critical, but it's also challenging. I did not recognize until our first research session that this is really painful for 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, because while we all have seen or witnessed or experienced, overt acts of racism, we have tried our best to shelter our children and prevent them from going through the same pain that we have. So when they see it egregiously displayed in a scrapbook, articles of, horrible acts against Black people, ads that, where our people are being mocked and insulted, kids hadn't seen these, and some of them had to remove themselves. Some of them were brought to tears over seeing this information displayed as though it was a source of state pride. In the 60s and 70s. And while we don't have those same views as a city now, that absolutely was the view of the city in the past. And so, making sure that we bring in young people, but also provide them with the support to understand and cope with the fact that this work is painful. It's hard. There's joy in the outcome, but there's very little joy in what you're reading, right? This is hard stuff. But for me, the excitement is in getting this stuff documented, getting the harms categorized, and seeing how we move forward with that. That is what I'm most excited about.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yes, thank you. I think part of this local reparations movement is like how Nkechi said, I think she says unbearing the coffins. It's just so much detail that we're actually uncovering. Like all of us, like you said, know it's bad. This happened, discrimination and eminent domain. But when you really get to the details of it all, and I've been listening to other stories from other cities and stuff too. Brother gave a report about some of the Black codes, for example, Illinois. There's so many different times, you just get more and more present to the detail of it. It is really painful. It is, but it's just like, this is a process that America is going through, and this is going to be profound for us and for them. It's really, okay, let me be quiet. Okay.
No, I think that's important, because one of the things, in the African-centered education movement, what I began to learn was that the power wasn't in just saying we were kings and queens, right? Like there was a moment that may have felt like enough, and people were, like, after you've been told for so long, your people wasn't nothing, and y'all were subservient, and just all kinds of the madness, the rhetoric that undergirds the system of white supremacy, just to be, I was a king, I was a queen, I come from something. But the deeper you understand the building of civilizations, like specific, and this is what I really appreciate about my brother Greg Kamati Carr from Howard, like to be able to go to the dynasty and to say, in this dynasty, here's what we were doing. That level of detail is transformative, because it's not a generalization. It's not just glossed over. It's the same way as it relates to injury. To be able to say specifically, this family on this day lost their father. Now, what does that mean? If your father is drug out of a home and he never comes back, how did that impact not just the children that were in that home, but how that impacted how they raised their children, if they had any, how they moved in the world, what their possibilities were, right? Because their possibilities were limited because somebody was taken from their home. And so now they can't go to college, or they don't have the protection or the sense of protection. And they live with this trauma the rest of their life, and they pass it on to the next generation. So the specificity of the injuries, I think, is something that will be transformative for us individually, but also as we tell our people's story in a way that people can really understand what was taken, the significance of what was taken. It's just not, I used to live in a neighborhood and I don't live there no more. I lost my home where I had memories. All that's gone. And I can't go back to it because they put a martyr and run it through that space. That's the power of the work that I think we're attempting to do and what can be done across the country.
All right. Mama Nabantu, Dr. Mama Nabantu, you want to give us your closing thoughts and what are the next steps?
Well,
We go from here.
as an educator and also being a part of a community that I saw torn apart in East Palo Alto, California, also known as Little Nairobi, uh, watching what happened there and then coming here seeing the same thing happening where they took away our black businesses. They built 5-story hotel, and they got what's it called now? It's not called there's Google is there now, and Amazon is there, and what's the other one? Facebook, I guess it's Meta now, actually surrounds the community I used to live in. I mean, they literally took over the community, and our people can't even live there anymore. They can't afford to live there anymore. And I'm looking at Oakhurst community where Lisa and I live, how it's changed since I've been here since 2006. What I like to see continue to happen is that the curriculum of the elementary and high school, community college, and so forth needs to be changed or added about the reparations movement. And I have a former student that's now running a school here in the city of Decatur who has been working along with his partner on curriculum for national curriculum. And I spoke with them the other day and asked them would they be interested in creating a reparations curriculum. And my student, he went through it. I had him from the 4th through the 8th grade, and ready. I said that we may be able to fund you for your work. So that we got 2 people now that's willing to help write the reparations curriculum within the elementary school, high school, and so on. So I'm hoping that that happens because our children need to get it in the schools. And I know it's going to be great to have the visionaries in different libraries and government buildings and the recreation building, all of that. But they need to have it in their curriculum, in their classrooms. So I hope that this will materialize and come into fruition. So that's what I'm looking for next.
Yes, that's powerful. There's a whole, and I think the forces that be realize the power of that, and that's why we've had to push back in banning books, push back on CRT, push back on all of that, because I think that they know the profound nature it would have for reparations, or reparations curriculum to be taught in the schools. Not just for but African people, children of African descent, but really for the whole entire school system in the United States, it would have a profound effect. And so we got to push. That's a hard push. But we got to make sure we continue to move on that. And thank you for bringing that. I'll be interested in working with those young people on the curriculum too. So I just want to thank this great conversation we had. I'd like to thank you, Attorney Molly Davis. Thank you, Dr. Mama Nabantu. Thank you, Commissioner Lisa Mayer, for your work. And thank you all for being guests on this edition of the Reparations Now podcast. And
thank you, brother. We appreciate you, man. You are a long distance reparations runner, and that can never be questioned. Your commitment to this has been really, really honestly an inspiration. You have stayed on the case. You've kept the light on for those of us who have had to veer off in other ways, and that's important. So that's critically important.
Thank you, Brother Holly.
Ditto, ditto, ditto.
Thank you.
We love you.
Yes,
All right, now you're listening to Reparations Now podcast with your host, Brother Jumoke Ifetayo. You can contact us at our website, reparationsnowpodcast.com. You can also contact us directly at reparationsnowpodcast@gmail.com. Again, we want to thank our guests. We want to thank Reparations United for supporting us. And reparations now, reparations now, reparations now.